I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship. Something stupid is coming out of his mouth. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. He needs his vote pulled immediately. And of course, yes, a season like this has to have a name. Let's talk about something good about Justin Freck. What are you doing? Season of dreams. Ohio State, my guys, are either the best or the second best program in the history of college football. This guy is a bonehead. They love him. I question your judgment as an adult. I really do. I was a total hater. I know that for a fact, and I just don't get it. Get us back our sleeves and say, bring me that. That's the one I want. Hey, welcome into JUCK on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me. I just got done rewatching the national championship game, and it is just wild, man. The Bucks were up 31-7, and I cannot believe in a national championship game that we saw, like, I was calling the game live. So obviously in the chat, there was a whole lot of, premature celebrating, but it almost felt like the team was doing that. And that's a pretty ill-advised thing to do in the national championship game. And Notre Dame, to their credit, kept fighting, kept plugging, made some great plays with some penalties to help them get back to pretty close to getting in it. And then on 3rd and 11 with 2.5 minutes left, it's 3rd and 11, 2:45. 10 seconds left on the play clock. Snapped it with 8. Will goes long. He's got JJ. He's got JJ down to the 10. Yes. Yes. That kind of felt a little holy Buckeye-ish right there.
Jeremiah Smith.
Yes. I just set that up so I could play that. Man, was that fun. My gosh. What a night, guys. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep. I haven't had a whole lot of sleep over the past, 24 hours, but it was definitely worth it. And you know who else didn't have a whole lot of sleep? Will Howard, Ryan Day, Cody Simon. These poor guys, they go give the post-game press conference afterwards. And then they are due at 9 a.m. for a mandatory media press conference. Mandated. 9 a.m. These guys probably didn't sleep all night. Cody, they asked him. He said, I got a couple of hours, solid 2-3 hours. Will Howard said sleep is for the weak. But as we sit here and reflect back on this season, which I've done a lot of already, I'm just going all the way back to the beginning, to the preseason, watching some of my old stuff, just to kind of, it's kind of like a video diary of where I was thinking of, what I was thinking about the units as we headed in. There was a couple of things that stood out to me. Number one, the offensive line. I thought this offensive line was going to be an excellent unit. I thought they were going to be a top 5 unit. At the end of the day, someone else's opinion. So not a stat, but another tool we can use when we look at a lot of different things when we're judging things. But for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to say the Buckeyes finish top 5 PFF by the end of the year. Book it. Top 5 offense, top 5 offensive line. Go Will, go Buckeye line. We're running it down their throats. And even better, the wide receivers are going to block this year. And when we look at what these Buckeyes just did with the pieces that they have doing the very best they could, when they had Seth McLaughlin and when they had Josh Simmons, could you imagine? You just never know, right? Because if they have them, then maybe this doesn't happen, the loss here doesn't happen, and things don't change, and you don't get more aggressive. But boy, if this current edition of the team that we're watching now throughout this playoffs, if they had the offensive line they started with, now we're hitting into some scary territory of just how dominant this team could have been offensively. But they didn't, and they made do with what they had. And it was awesome to see, watching guys like Luke Montgomery. Watching him emerge in this postseason has been so cool. Luke, that's a guy we were talking in the preseason. 10.5 out of the 12 preseason practices in the spring. Sorry, not preseason, in the spring. Luke was starting at right guard. He was the guy that was penciled in. He was number 1 up. And then he disappeared. And we didn't really see him again in any real capacity until the end of the year. And that's awesome. Now he goes into next year. And we'll go over the depth chart today for next year. take a look at just how many guys we lose. But some awesome stories. BI got to have a big moment. Brandon Innes in the national championship game. I was so happy for him getting that big time catch. Great route. He's not super fast straight line speed, but that dude is talented. That route he ran, he got himself like 4 yards of separation off that route, and I loved it. But I did say heading into this season, and I thought it was blatantly obvious that this Ohio State team was the most talented team, the most well-balanced team, and that they should be the favorite, not Georgia, to win the national championship.
And the odds, to me, are backwards. I think Ohio State is the championship favorite this year.
And I did a show, I don't know, it was maybe like my third month, and the show was titled Ohio State, not Georgia, is the it team. And it was getting all these views, biggest one I ever had. I was all excited till I realized it was getting so many views because it was being shared all around Georgia, and they were all in the comments dunking on me. They were dunking on me hard. Well, today I dunk. I dunk today. Ohio State, not Georgia, is the it team. It's the Buckeyes. And Georgia, unfortunately, we didn't get to face them in the national championship because they got physically manhandled by the team that didn't belong on the field with Ohio State last night. That's the difference. But what killed me about their comments was the way they talked about Ohio State. Not just that Ohio State wasn't on their level, but that Ohio State wasn't even on the level of good to average SEC teams like Tennessee or Florida. And of course, they always would go back to that Ohio State record against the SEC.
Thinking that Ohio State wasn't capable of beating them.
And you already know Ohio State's not winning a natty unless they somehow get all the way through the playoffs without having to play an SEC team. Ohio State can't beat an SEC team if their life depended on it.
And Kirby.
So to be able to get the draw that Ohio State had, to beat Texas and beat Tennessee handily, makes me feel great to start to change that narrative that I have not been able to stand for the last 20 years. But that's why Ohio State wasn't favored this year. It wasn't because Ohio State wasn't a better team and it was blatantly obvious. It's because Georgia had Kirby Smart, and as recently as 8 months ago, Kirby Smart was just assumed to be the next Nick Saban. That's the way people were talking about that dude. Georgia couldn't be beat. That was Nick Saban Jr. And the Georgia folk, they felt the same way. I also said the Ohio State program is in better shape than the Georgia program moving forward, and I believe that's true as well. And I made the argument how silly it was that Kirby gets looked at as the next Saban while Ryan Day is looked at like a failure. And I proposed a hypothetical. And the hypothetical was, in that game that Georgia and Ohio State played, let's say Ohio State gets 7 more yards and makes that field goal. And I know a lot of people say that game hinged on a field goal, and technically it did. But asking a college kicker to make a 50-yard field goal in a national championship game, essentially, that's just, the odds aren't good. So my context to that is it hinged on Ohio State getting 7 more yards and then making a field goal. If they continue to be aggressive, kick that field goal, let's say it goes in my hypothetical. In that hypothetical, now you're entering this season with Ryan Day and Kirby Smart each having won national championship. Ryan Day beating them head-to-head, and the Buckeyes winning the more recent national championships. And if that was the case, heading into this year, everybody would have had Ohio State, 10 out of 10 people, as the favorite entering this year. So it was that, and it was that Georgia had big bad Carson Beck, going to be a top 10 draft pick. Carson Beck will start at Miami next year, not in the NFL. And Ohio State's Will Howard just ran through the playoffs like a hot knife through butter. It was always the Buckeyes, guys. It always was. But now when I bring up that hypothetical, we need to recognize now just how close we are to Ryan Day being the one with 2 national championships, and Kirby just won. That close. Could you imagine? It would be Ohio State building the mini dynasty. As far as Georgia's, I'm not going to say it's over. But when we look back at the top 4 teams heading into this year, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon, projecting forward, in the near future, I do think it's still those 4 teams that are set up for the most success. I think it's those programs that have the most stable coaching, resources, blueprint. They got it down. Recruiting, transfer portal, like everything's there for those 4 programs. There's a couple on the fringe that might be able to pop in there, but I think it's those 4 as we move forward. And this new system, it's exciting. I'm so excited already for next year. I'm working on the depth chart. I'm looking at, my way too early top 10 before we even have everybody's rosters finalized. By the way, guys, Calvin Simpson Hunt, we talked about it earlier, I don't know, last week of the season or so, that Calvin Simpson Hunt, the Buckeyes were trying to retain him. It didn't work. Calvin Simpson Hunt, defensive back, enters the portal. Simpson Hunt was a top 100 player out of Waxahachie, Texas, and he was rated higher than Jermaine Matthews, and a really, really solid player. So you lose him, you lose some depth in corner, and we'll go over that room. But it's those kind of blows when we hear about the end of a super team, and you can't keep guys like that who are going to stick around and wait to be a starter in year 4 with a red shirt, 2 seasons left. And it's true to a certain extent for a lot of programs. Ohio State really hasn't been hit by it. A lot of the guys that have left the Ohio State program have been guys that don't see a path ever to the field. They don't see it ever. And Calvin Simpson Hunt, one of the guys that I think would eventually have started at corner. You never know now, but that is a blow right there. That's one of those blows about keeping that depth together, keeping those high level backups. And that's a blow, but that sucks. Also, Devin Brown ends his Buckeyes career and he is headed to the University of Cal. So I sure wish him well, man. And so happy that he got to stick around, get a national championship ring, everything he put into the program, the positive attitude always, and a lot of the outside influence that it created a lot of hate. The fact that he had a lot of fans and people that wanted to see him created a pushback against him, and he never deserved any of it. All he was a great teammate to everybody and bled Buckeye through and through. So that is, I don't root for everybody that leaves the program and is a transfer somewhere else. It usually depends on how they acted when they were with Ohio State, which is usually good. So I usually do. And the reason they left, Devin Brown, I'll be rooting for him. And he should walk in there, obviously, and be the starting quarterback next year. So that'll be interesting because they had a pretty good team this year. Anyway, one of the things Ryan Day said at the press conference was he was talking about, and this clearly always bothered him. It bothered him all year long, and you could tell every time it got brought up. But he mentioned it in the press conference post-game about being tagged with the $20 million.
People talk a lot about, how much money guys were making in NIL and different things like that. That was just because NIL was available, and the majority of our team came back. These guys have been here for a long time. Certainly, Will was a huge addition. Caleb was a huge addition. Don't get me wrong, but, when you hear that number, that doesn't mean, a whole lot other than the fact that, the market value for our guys in Columbus and Ohio State is pretty high. That's really what it means. And so, when that got tagged on us early, yeah, there was a lot of pressure put on our players, and but that's nothing new at Ohio State. I think the difference is that we finished the season the right way, and we grew, we built.
So it's something that has been used since it first came out as a way to preemptively devalue anything Ohio State could potentially accomplish. And he knew it, and I knew it. And no, who cares what anybody else thinks? I get it. But college football is very much, more than any other sport, always has been, kind of a public perception sport. It's just what it is, man. You got all these teams, and you're only playing for one championship. What about everybody else? How do you view them? And it's largely where you fall in the hierarchy. And so many people don't really look at things that actually show who the best programs are. So a lot of it is public perception. In the public perception that Ohio State bought a roster and brought in, assembled this army of transfer portal mercenaries. And I got mercenary comments as early as or as recently as today. It just always has irked the crap out of me. Clearly it's irked the crap out of him. And I will never understand why the man who put it out there, that man was Ross Bjork. But this just really is irritating to me. But Ross Bjork went on record in similar fashion to Gene Smith in that article in The Athletic that I shared with you guys last month. And he opened the books for everybody to see regarding what Ohio State players make in NIL money, which now makes 2 Ohio State ADs in the course of 2 months who have come out with this kind of information. And they're the only ones in college football who've done this. The most high-profile brand in all of college football. Nobody else is putting numbers out there like this. And to the casual fan, these numbers seem absolutely insane and make it sound as though Ohio State is in a league of its own, this big behemoth program gone rogue, buying a roster. And I don't mean fans of our rivals. I mean the vast majority of casual college football fans have absolutely no clue what's going on in the landscape of college football when it comes to what payments for NIL look like, or what these deals look like, or that years ago, Tennessee signed Nico for a $7 million deal, or that Jaden Rashada, who we just talked about, had a $10 million deal. All they see is comments like this from Ross Bjork, who said, in the meantime, Ohio State's donor-led collective and brand affiliates dispersed, quote, around $20 million to the Buckeyes players this past year, according to Bjork. So Ross and I got off on the wrong foot. I feel like that was a huge mistake. And I don't know if he thought people were going to follow suit, or if he thought maybe that made it look enticing to come play at Ohio State. And some people gave me that argument at the time. But the truth is, for the 2 months previous, it had been coming out that the Ohio State staff was having a very difficult time because the $13 million figure was out there, and parents and street agents of recruits were coming to them like they were a piggy bank and thought they were going to get a massive payday. And they had to keep sifting through all the crap to get to the guys they wanted, because they were just getting these people coming looking for handouts. And it was really irritating them. And he put it out after that. So I feel like it was a big misstep. And again, now that we have won the national championship, it is everywhere, all over again. And not just from college football fans who talk crap, but journalists. Of course, nobody bothers to look into some other numbers that have come out from other programs. Ohio State is always in the upper echelon of everything about college football. They're certainly going to be in the upper echelon of that. By the by,
this is much more like the NFL. Guys are not in class, but our team has come together so well over the last month and a half. There really isn't any school, and I wouldn't say that it was a reset. Like, it wasn't like, at the end of the year we were broken. It wasn't that way. We had an awful day. I don't know how else to describe it. We had an awful day, and we just said that we could never do that again.
And he actually made mention in this press conference, something that I picked up. Now, he may have been just talking about this particular game, but when I heard it, part of me went back to that meeting, the meeting that the players had with him after the Michigan game. I'm going to play it for you. Tell me what you think here.
Game, and it was like, you know what, game on the line. Let's go. Let's just be aggressive. And I just thought to myself, you only get one national championship. You only get one opportunity, a year to do this. Let's just lay it on the line and put it out there and be aggressive. And that's what we did. And I walked into the defensive guys and I talked to the offensive guys that we were going to continue to be aggressive throughout the game. And I told the team that leading up to the game, and I had to make sure I followed through with that. But ultimately, we got to make the plays. The protection was excellent by the offense.
Talking about being aggressive for the rest of the game, I told the team that, and I had to make sure I followed through on that. And it just took me back to that. where there were so many points throughout this season where they were not aggressive at all, when it just seemed like it would suit this team so much better to play like that, to play like they did in the playoffs. And a lot of that meeting, you got to imagine those guys were just kind of like, take the cuffs off of us, man. We know we can whoop these guys. Let us go. Let us run. And I've played a lot of football. I'm sure you guys have played a lot of football, sports of all kinds. Those coaches don't like to hear that from their players. Like, shut up, yeah, or I hear you, okay. Or they pacify you for a little bit. But to take that in and to really say, like, I'm going to follow through with it because I told the guys I was going to do it. I love it, man. I love it. And again, it might not even be about that, but that's where my mind went when I heard it. Of course, everything feels great right now, so I might be reaching. Who knows?
And they saw it through and learned a bunch of life lessons, but they're going to go down in Ohio State history as some of, one of the greatest teams to ever play at Ohio State. After all the things that have been said throughout the year, these guys are going to be cemented as one of the best stories in Ohio State history and one of the best football teams ever. Only 9 teams have ever done it, and 3 in the over 50 years. These guys right here. And
look at how happy he is, man. I love it.
where not a lot of people had that vision, but these guys did, and they saw it through. And Ohio State may not be for everybody, but it's for these guys, and I'm really proud of them.
Okay.
Jeremiah play? Yeah.
I don't know that I'm obviously I know that guy has people that hate him for no flipping reason, but just as a human moment to see, everybody knows what he went through on the surface, and we can imagine what he went through behind closed doors. But to be sitting there in that moment, just giddy like a kid, man. These guys right here, you can't help but feel great for him, and great for those guys who just loved afterwards the fact that they could go up. What are they going to say now, Coach Dave? What are they going to say now? And to have that moment and that bond, man, that stuff lasts. And these kind of wins can be program changing. They really can. They really can. I was talking to my brother earlier, and he just reminded me as we were talking about national championship counts and things like that, just how skewed we all are from Nick Saban's run, something that will never be seen again in college football, something that was just, once the guy got rolling, got his system in place, and continued to stay on the cutting edge, evolving ahead of every. He was just impossible. He was impossible to deal with. We're talking about a dude who was 7 out of 10 in national championship games, went to 10 national championship games, won 7 of them, 6 at Alabama, 1 at LSU. And it's skewed even my mind. And I'm someone who looks at the numbers, but I was telling my brother, like, I just can't believe that's only the 3rd time we won a national championship this century. We're only 24 years into it. That's not bad at all. In fact, that's very good when we look at the rest of the world, the rest of the country. Alabama's got 6. That's crazy. That's the crazy one. It's not crazy that we've got 3. 3 is incredible. LSU has 3. They're tied with us. But Ohio State now sits squarely, undeniably, in that 2nd position of the most successful program of this century, which is where they always should have been. And they'll continue to fight to make it to the top. In Alabama, look, I don't know what you think about the program right now. I think it's in way better shape than a lot of people. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Let's take a look at that roster now and see what we're looking at next year as we open up the season in what's going to be a top 5 matchup. Could potentially be a 1 versus 2 or a 1 versus 3 when Texas comes into the shoe. That one's going to be off the hook. Oh, but before we do, I want to show you what I got. So I was at number 1, the Tennessee game. That came in today. See all that big feminine orange in the background to remind me of that game. And then the Rose Bowl. Another great shot at JJ. And then I got the Cotton Bowl. So now I'm just waiting on getting something from the national championship to put together a little collage of that run that we'll never forget. And by the way, I put this up, and I put it up yesterday on the show. I put it up on Twitter as well. This is what the Buckeyes did this year. These are the teams that they beat. The number 8 team, the number 7 team, the number 5 team, 4 team, 3 team, and 1 team on their way to a national championship. And a bunch of the rival fans, of course, said, you do realize, or hey, idiot, like everybody's going to do this now in this new system. And they're just really stupid. The thing is, like, there's only one other team out of the 12 that could have done anything remotely like this, because to do this, you had to beat 2 top 5 teams in the regular season. And there was only one other team that did that, and that's Georgia. But they didn't even do that. They beat Tennessee in the regular season. They beat Texas in the regular season. Then they beat Texas again in the conference championship. That's 3. Then they could have beaten, hypothetically, Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State. That would have been 6 high-level wins like that. Wouldn't have been as high, but it would have been high level like that. They're the only ones. You have to be able to beat 2 high-level programs in the regular season and then have either a conference championship and 3 playoff wins, or the non-conference championship route and 4 wins in the playoff to do that. So no, that's not going to happen again just because everybody who wins this is now going to go on a run and beat some good teams. Let's say Penn State, for instance. Penn State has no high-level wins in the regular season. SMU, Boise State, they would have had 2. They would have had 2 of those if they'd have won the national championship this year. Ohio State's got 6 high-level wins. So I try not to explain anymore on Twitter. Like, people are so dumb, and it's something I try to teach my kids. The older I get, I used to tell them, like, look, 50% of the people in this world are dumb. Okay. So just don't even bother. But the older I get, I think the higher that percentage goes up. Or maybe I just get smarter. I don't know which one. Anyway, let's look at the depth chart. So the defense, this is where the Bucs are going to take the biggest hit. You're going to replace 8 or 9 guys. Starting at defensive end, Jack and JT obviously are gone. Who do you got? Well, you got, it's about as good as it gets, man. 2 guys that have been in the system for 3 years come in as seniors in Kenyatta and Caden Curry. Now, for Tyleek and Ty Hamilton, both heading on to the NFL as well. You've got Edric Houston in his 2nd year, and he's been playing really good. Caden McDonald in his 3rd, and that kid, I think, is going to be like a Tyleek. I think he's going to continue to be a guy that the NFL wants big time. At linebacker, does Sonny come back or does he not? We don't know. I think he does. I think it would be silly if he left, but who knows? I think he does. Cody Simon, obviously on his way, and he has made himself some money this year. Good for Cody. He's been awesome. Arvell Reese steps up, and Arvell Reese has every bit the ability to do what Cody did, and maybe even better. So I really like that linebacker crew, with Sonny being another year older and experienced. That would be great to have those 2. I would really like that as the core there. Then we look in the secondary, IGB. Here's the other guy. We don't know what IGB's doing. If IGB comes back, you'd clearly give him the nod for starter, even though he annoyed the hell out of us last night, or national championship night. Denzel Burke, he's out. You got Jermaine Matthews. Jordan Hancock out at nickel. I think Lorenzo Styles is the guy for that spot. I think they really trust him and they like him. At safety, Lathan Ransom gone. Is it going to be Jalen McClain, Malik Hartford? We don't know. Either way, they're playing next to Caleb, and that makes everybody better. I really think that Jalen McClain has an opportunity to be a kind of a star. He's just got a little something about him, and the athleticism to boot, and I'm really excited about him. On the offense, let's start at quarterback. Julian, obviously the leader in the clubhouse right now. We'll see what happens. Who knows? You got Trey. He's obviously gone. You're going to have James Peoples stepping into that role. We don't know yet what Quinshawn's going to do. I suspect he leaves. You have CJ Donaldson, the senior transfer coming up from West Virginia. So you got to downgrade at running back, probably by a decent amount. At tight end, G. Scott, he's gone. Max Clare, that's an upgrade. That's the number one transfer portal tight end. Kid from Ohio, really like him. And I think it's without a doubt an upgrade, though G has played really good through these playoffs. At wide receiver, you had Emeka, Carnell Tate, and JJ. You've got Brandon Innes, Carnell Tate, and JJ. Carnell Tate and JJ, 1 year older, 1 year bigger, 1 year more experienced. I mean, I don't know, man. It might be an upgrade when you throw in Mylan Graham in there, who we've still not even really get to see flash at all, but everything we hear behind the scenes is this kid is legit. At offensive line, Donovan Jackson gone. At left tackle, you're going to have Anyanwa. Anyanwa is the transfer from Rice, one of the best offensive tackles in the portal. Let's just swing it over to the right tackle now. Daniels, the other transfer tackle from Minnesota, probably the leader in the clubhouse right now to replace Fryer at right tackle, but that could be Ian Moore as well. At left guard, Luke Montgomery. Let's slot him in there. I think that's where he stays. At center, you got Carson. Maybe Josh Padilla takes that spot, and you can move Carson to right guard for Tegra. I don't know what they're going to do yet, but you got some options. And then you got Austin Sareveld in the mix there. So for your interior guys, you got Padilla and Carson who can both play center. Padilla is just a center, but Carson can play center or guard. You got Luke Montgomery, you got Tegra Shabola, and you got Austin Sareveld. That's a good crew. That's a good crew of guys. I don't know how you're going to just slot them in. They'll decide. But as a whole, we don't know what these transfers are going to be able to do. And we don't have any idea yet. But they like them, so we'll see. I think it's a damn good-looking roster. I think it's a roster that has a good mix of young guys, but also a lot of younger guys with experience, and then a lot of guys who have waited their turn. I think that the roster is going to surprise a lot of people when they see people from the outside that haven't seen these guys play much. They're going to be pretty surprised. Look at the defensive line. It's going to be, again, I think, another strength. I think I'm a huge believer in Edric Houston. I think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to burst onto the scene this year. And I really believe in Cade McDonald next to him. And we saw Kenyatta come on big time towards the end of the year. And then Caden Curry, Caden Curry is one of those dudes that's just like always in the mix, making a play. Ziggy Grady. Ziggy Grady is a true freshman, might get some action. Love Arvell and Sonny. Arvell and Sonny at linebacker, I like. And I don't know. Malik Harper, Jalen McClain. I don't know what's going to come of that. But all in all, man, defense is going to look stout. They're young, but they're stout. And if these guys can get past Texas next year, really, you got a schedule that looks like you're going to the playoffs again. We're talking about a team that hasn't won less than 11 games in, 4 or 5 years, right? No, 4 or 5 years. Ohio State hasn't won less than 11 games, which is a playoff bid, right? Automatically. Since I got to find this out now. Yeah, so that popped into my head, but I was like, there's no way that can be right. But yeah, that's right. 2011. 2011. Ohio State would have been in the playoffs every single year. So, this is it's going to be another loaded team. We'll see if it can compete at the upper echelon by the end of the season. I think the parts are there to be able to improve that much. And then Julian Sand. There's an X factor there. Julian Sand just might be the truth. We don't know yet. He just might be. He wasn't ready for it this year, but he might be. He's certainly look. I know there's a lot of concern about his size. I'm telling you, I saw the kid 9 months ago, right, standing right in front of me, and I wasn't concerned from that moment on. Looking at him next to all his teammates, I don't know. I think it's his baby face. He looks really young in the face. That accentuates the size issue. It makes it appear worse than it is. And he's grown since then and gotten thicker since then, up to about 205 right now. So, I don't think it's an issue. About 6'2", 6'3", maybe 6'2.5", 205. But the baby face, it definitely accentuates that. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I appreciate you guys so much. If you join me for the live stream, thanks so much, man. I had a great time watching the national championship with you guys. It's something I won't forget. And if you could, please help me out and subscribe to the channel. We are now 1 week out from our 1-year anniversary. And I had hoped to be able to get to 10,000 subscribers by the time we reach that. And shout out to my buddy Shane, who made a cool graphic on Twitter for me. I'm going to pull it up for you guys. He made this graphic and posted this, and I love it. Heck, I might just put it on the thumbnail. Look at this. He put me with the national championship trophy, and then he put the sleeves. He put the sleeve stripe there, and it's quoted down here. It says, give us back our sleeves. And then the season of dreams up top. I love it. So shout out to him. Check out our sponsor if you like helmets, Green Gridiron. Link is in the description. Get somebody a helmet for a present, or get a Buckeyes helmet, and we'll get some national championship stickers and pop them on there. That's what I got to get next. We got to get some national championship stickers. All right, guys, that'll do me for. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for rocking with me this season. You guys have made this the most fun season I have ever had as a Buckeye fan, and I appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out. Hey, it's Juck.
Juck? Who is Juck?
Juck on Bucks.
Juck on Bucks. Juck on Bucks?
Juck.
Juck.
Juck. Juck on Bucks.
My guy, Juck. Juck on Bucks.
My buddy Juck.
Juck is the Juck.
It's Juck on Bucks. Okay.
Juck is junk.
The Juck Eyes. The Juck
Eyes.
Juck on Bucks.
Junk. Juck. Not junk. Juck.